You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You could just read the Taliban is classified, and if you don't know, the Taliban's in charge of Afghanistan. They're classified as a specially designated global terrorist organization by OFAC. So post-2021, so this is last year, 2024, we spent $697 million of the taxpayers' dollars in Afghanistan, including $534,719,000 in change from USAID in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is ruled by folks named Sarajuddin Haqqani. The Haqqani network mean anything to anybody in the room? How about Abdullah bin Laden? Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS-Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's...
This hearing was unlike anything we've seen in years. The tension was thick, the anger was boiling over, and Scott Perry's brutal, no-holds-barred honesty hit the room like a freight train. These weren't scripted talking points. This was a straight gut punch, a raging reminder that billions in American taxpayer dollars might be flowing directly into the pockets of terrorists, while our veterans come home wondering what the hell their sacrifices were even for. Scott Perry didn't waste a second. He tore right into the core of it. $697 million in U.S. taxpayer cash sent to Afghanistan last year, straight to a country now completely run by the Taliban, a designated global terrorist organization. His voice was raw fury, every word loaded with the weight of 20 years of American blood spilled on that soil.
I now recognize Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. USAID was created through executive order in 1961 by President Kennedy, long having lost and strayed from its mission, lost its direction. Even the Clinton administration tried unsuccessfully to reform it. And we spend, I don't know, somewhere between $40 and $50 billion annually on this organization. And with the things that you hear, well, many of us, probably most of us in this room, agree with projecting America's power for the good of all the world around the globe. Quite honestly, if our enemies were asked to design a foreign aid program that would actively undermine the United States of America at maximum cost to the taxpayer, they would be hard-pressed to create a scheme more effective than USAID. That's shocking to say, but I just, it's, look, let's just go to a couple things here. We left Afghanistan, and I'll characterize it as left in August of 2021. August of 2021. So the Taliban's in charge. Taliban threatens the lives of the NGO personnel distributing USAID. They claim credit for USAID distribution. They interfere with the distribution of USAID aid. They tax the beneficiary of the aid. They tax the delivery service. They steal the food commodities. They divert the funds. They extort citizens for protection for USAID aid. They create sham procurement schemes, and they threaten the lives of those who oppose those schemes. Now, that all occurred before August of 2021, when we were there. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You could just read the Taliban is classified, and if you don't know, the Taliban's in charge of Afghanistan. They're classified as a specially designated global terrorist organization by OFAC. So post-2021, so this is last year, 2024, we spent $697 million of the taxpayers' dollars in Afghanistan, including $534,719,000 in change from USAID in Afghanistan. I don't know what we think we're going to change in Afghanistan. We lost 22,000, lost or wounded 22,500 Americans in Afghanistan over the course of our term there in the war, spending over $2 trillion. We're just going to keep on spending because somehow we think it's going to get better. And if you're wondering who's in charge of Afghanistan getting the money, and that money I just mentioned, the $697 million is on top of, and is in addition to the weekly to every 10-day shipments in cash of $40 to $80 million. Afghanistan is ruled by folks named Seyroudin Haqqani. The Haqqani network mean anything to anybody in the room? How about Abdullah bin Laden, who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this money is going for the betterment of the women in Afghanistan. It is not. You are funding terrorism, and it's coming through USAID. And it's not just Afghanistan, because Pakistan's right next door. USAID spent $840 million in the last 20 years on Pakistan's education-related program. It includes $136 million to build 120 schools, of which there is zero evidence that any of them were built. Why would there be any evidence? The Inspector General can't get in to see them. But you know what? We doubled down and spent $20 million from USAID to create educational television programs for children unable to attend the physical school. Yeah, they can't attend it because it doesn't exist. You paid for it. Somebody else got the money. You are paying for terrorism. This has got to end. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. In addition, we don't even have an embassy in Afghanistan. Chair now recognizes the representative from California, Mr. Barra.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start off by, I know a lot of USAID workers, former workers, alumni are watching this hearing. I want to thank them for their work. They're patriotic Americans. They're out there, they're doing God's work, helping save lives and everything else. And I'm sorry that you guys are caught up in this. So I want to appreciate this on behalf of the United States of America. You guys are patriotic Americans. I've visited with a lot of these folks. I travel a lot, gone into refugee camps, and have seen what they do in terms of life-saving stuff. And again, it's super important work that they do. It represents the best of American values, and it is really sad to see these folks get thrown under the bus. I don't want a 21-year-old tech bro going through deciding which programs we should continue and not continue. Mr. Chairman, I want us to work and do that work. We can go line by line, or we could hire Mr. Yoho to go through line by line and say, hey, here's the programs that make sense, here's the ones that don't. But that's our job. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's our oversight. I don't want that 21-year-old tech bro, probably has never traveled anywhere, has no passport, doing our job. Let's do this work together.
He called out USAID by name for pumping money into a regime led by guys like Seyroudin Haqqani, the head of the Haqqani network, a crew tied straight to bin Laden himself. To Perry, this isn't foreign aid. This is straight-up terrorist financing, and American taxpayers are footing the damn bill without even knowing it. His voice got heavier, angrier as he hammered the emotional wreckage. 22,000 American troops killed or wounded in Afghanistan. 2 decades of war, trillions spent, thousands of families destroyed. And now, he said, it's all being pissed away. Bags of U.S. cash handed right to the same bastards those troops fought and died trying to stop. He didn't pull punches. He called it disgraceful, shameful, a betrayal of every veteran, that their sacrifices are being mocked by the very government that sent them to fight. The frustration filled the room and turned it ice cold. Step by step, Perry laid out the Taliban's playbook. They threaten aid workers' lives, seize shipments, tax the people getting help, divert food and cash, extort villages, set up fake procurement scams, steal everything that comes in. And yet, the money keeps flowing. He shouted the names again. Haqqani, bin Laden, letting them hang in the air like poison. Then he dropped the absolute bombshell. Weekly cash shipments, $40, still flying into Afghanistan. And that money, Perry said, ends up funding madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, ISIS-K, Boko Haram, terrorist training camps. He didn't call it an oversight. He called it funding America's enemies. Just when the room thought it couldn't get worse, Perry pivoted to Pakistan. USAID dumped $840 million over 2 decades on education improvements, including $136 million for 120 schools. Except there's zero proof those schools even exist. Inspectors couldn't even get in to check. No buildings, no classrooms, nothing. And the cherry on top, another $20 million spent on educational TV shows for kids who were supposedly going to schools that were never built. His message hit like a sledgehammer. You're paying for corruption. You're paying for lies. You're paying for terrorism. When Scott Perry wrapped up, there was no applause, no cheers, just dead, suffocating silence. Because for one raw moment, everybody felt it. The pain of veterans, the sting of wasted sacrifice, the rage of watching our money strengthen the enemies we fought for 20 years. Perry didn't just call out incompetence, he called it betrayal, and the emotion behind every word was undeniable. This wasn't a debate. This was a full-on reckoning. Scott Perry ripped open wounds that never healed since the Afghan withdrawal. His message was simple and devastating. America deserves answers. Veterans deserve respect. Taxpayers deserve real accountability. Whether anything actually changes, only time will tell. Hit subscribe. Smash that like. Turn on notifications. Because these political firestorms are only getting hotter.